There she is. So Quinn, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And why don't you take it away?
Thanks a lot, Susan. So, hey, everyone, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you putting forth the effort to really sort of and express this interest in social emotional skills. If you have been learning about social emotional skills and what they are, how they can connect to things like other kind of trends that we're getting a lot in our professional development, things like trauma and adversity, stress. How do these things connect, and what does it all mean for what we can do? What can this look like in our programs in terms of our daily practice and our intentional programming, even our planning and our activity design? So that's kind of where I think we can focus our hour and a half here together. But what I'd like to do to start is I'll just introduce myself a little bit, and then, oh, great, we have another live video. Thank you, Joseph. You don't look like a Joseph, but you might be a Joseph. What do I know? Can you hear me? Oh, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, well, whatever. We'll keep going. And so to start out, yeah, let me just introduce myself a little bit. So I'm here representing this training for outfit that I started about 6 years ago. I used to work at a place called the Youth Work Learning Center in the School of Continuing Ed at UW Milwaukee, and it was also part of UW Extension statewide. And we really were doing professional development for people who work with kids and out of, well, in community-based services and out-of-home services. It could include congregate care. It could include after-school programs or other kinds of community-based youth programs. And that was kind of my formative experience with thinking about, you know, what kind of role can professional development play in terms of what we're doing in our programs. And we know that quality is all over the map in our programs statewide. You can see great quality programs, and you can see ones that are really struggling. And I think one common element to me is that the programs that are really into continuous learning in one way or another, whether it's using trainings or it's maybe some staff people that have a ton of experience and wisdom, or the group is just learning together as they go, but it's a really intentional process. That's what I think, first of all, that is utilizing our own social emotional skills and demonstrating them, which becomes really important, as we'll talk about, for what we're doing with our kids. But yeah, also that kind of gives us this, I mean, it means that we have to have a continuous curiosity. Are we doing the best things we could do for our kids? We know our kids have needs and they have experiences that can be really powerful. How do we construct that and work together to make that happen for our kids? So that's kind of a little bit about my professional background. I moved about 6 years ago to the School of Social Welfare at Helen Bader at UW Milwaukee, where we primarily train foster parents and group home staff statewide. And I've been involved in writing some curriculum around trauma and cross-cultural, cross-racial parenting and building healthy identities of marginalized youth. So that's been kind of my focus lately, and I'm really excited about that work. I find it really fun, and it's so amazing to meet foster parents all over the state, just like it is to meet after-school workers all over the state, because we all have big hearts, right? We all are not doing this for the money. We're all either we're here to stay and keep doing this, or we're using this great experience as a way to develop other skills and expertise and take our careers in different directions. And so there's just a lot of learning that can happen during this time. There's so much opportunity in after school, I think, to build richer and more powerful and more impactful programs. And it's really on us to do that. And I think, you know, we have the ability to do that if we're not just isolated and we're actually working as a team with our coworkers. So that's kind of my soapbox as well. And then I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. My youngest is 18 and is just graduating from high school today. The party is tonight. the ceremony was a few days ago, but the party is tonight. And he asked me if I would make him. So a while ago, I learned how to crochet, and I found out that it was super meditative and really great for me. And I was basically just filling requests from my kids and my friends. And it's always been little things, but this year he asked me to make him a giant crocheted mushroom. And I'm just about to finish it. It's like this big. It's pretty amazing. It's cool. So that's what I've been up to. And then I have a 26-year-old who is in Boulder going to school for somatic therapy. And I'm really looking forward this summer to biking all over the state because I love cross state biking. And I like going into dairy country and telling dad jokes to cows. That's just what I do. A lot of people don't know that cows have a great sense of humor, but they do. So I just said a little bit about myself, my interests with this topic, a little bit about maybe my family and hobbies and stuff. And if you would like to include any of those kinds of things in a little introduction, please do that. Let's just go around, and I'm going to call out who I see here in the boxes. And I first see John, the Zoom user.
Okay, my name's John Harmlich. I've been the youth program manager over at the East Madison Community Center for the past 30 years. And I'm also a special ed teacher and with the Madison School District for the past 30 years. So a little bit of both. And we've been doing social emotional learning daily and weekly for the last 25 years. So different names. We utilize 40 assets, and they're all pretty similar stuff. It's just the name of social emotional learning has been definitely put out there a little more since COVID and everything else. But no, we do it on a daily basis for kids, either in elementary, middle, and having curriculum set for them. So we start the day off right away when they get here with a check-in and then go from there. So yeah, it's paid a lot of dividends. And the 5 areas of most social and emotional learning, the core competencies we utilize a lot then.
Love it. Thanks, John. And so you mentioned a check-in, and I have some material that I found that I'll share as well, that's sort of around check-in kind of things. And so we'll talk more about why you found a check-in helpful. What do you believe it's doing? How does that connect to social emotional skill building and kind of the practical application that we're looking for today, examples of practical applications of social emotional skill development. And then if I'll ask you to explain exactly how you do those check-ins, because it's those details that can make something a thing that someone else can say, hey, I'm going to pick that up and try that, just like John said he did it, or with this little tweak, so we want to get into some of those details because that'll help us take it and run with it. Maybe try something different. So thanks a lot, John. I'm really thrilled to hear that you felt like one way or another you've been working on social emotional skill development with your kids. Just depends on what name they call it, right? And what other concepts they squish in there. And can we go over to Angie? Hey, Angie.
Sorry. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. My name is Angie Rios. I'm the site supervisor here at Teresa Terrace for 4 years now. We actually do something just like the last person, John, with the emoji board. When they come in, they tell us how they're feeling and whatever. That's working well with us.
Oh, with an emoji board. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have 3 children of my own. My oldest is 23. My middle child is 15. My middle child is 18. Sorry, he's graduating this Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, me too. Graduation. Yeah.
And then my youngest is 15.
Great. That's exciting. Yeah.
It is.
Thank you. I'm just putting John, well, I was trying to put John's name in the Zoom thing. Let's see if that's gonna work. And let's go over to, hello, Ava, I just saw your video. Ava, you ready? You're looking for the mute button? There you
Yeah.
go.
So we're just introducing ourselves then.
Yes.
Okay.
please.
I work at the Kennedy Heights Community Center. This is blurred out, but along with Kira and Brittany, we're on the same team.
Okay,
But I'm the office manager here at the community center, and I assist with the after school program. I'd say I work with kids on social emotional learning more on a like one-on-one basis,
Mhm.
like through reading, or like I like to focus on like helping kids deal with their emotions in a positive way, like in the interactions that they have with staff and with other students.
Okay.
Yeah.
How, I don't want to, we can get into this a little bit more, but in a nutshell, what do you tap into in order to do that kind of work, helping kids understand their emotions? Do you have any particular experience or background that you think you kind of tap into?
Yeah, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, so I
Nice.
think about that a lot.
Yes.
And just I don't know. I feel like I relate sometimes too much to the kids
Mhm.
in doing my own emotional work with myself. And so a lot of times I take practices or bits and pieces of things that I've learned that help me like emotionally regulate and express myself, and just try to explain it in simpler terms for the kids.
That is really beautiful, Ava. I think that, I don't know if y'all are fans of Mr. Rogers or not, but Fred Rogers just always been a role model of mine, both just because as a kid, I felt like he was talking to me because he was, but also then when I started getting into developmental psychology and everything, I just realized how brilliant and important he was and his vision. And there was a point in a documentary, I don't know if it was the Tom Hanks one or a different one, that somebody asked his wife how he did it. Like, how does he do that? How is he so present and insightful with like whoever he's with? And his wife said he works really hard at that every day. It's a practice. It's a lifelong practice. And I do believe that teaching social emotional skills is a lifelong practice, because we have to model it and work on it ourselves with that kind of awareness you just talked about, Ava. It's so valuable for you to be able to be doing that. And then, like you said, it helps you then fine tune and identify and explain to kids, because you've just got that, you're doing that same work. So that level of awareness is incredibly important. Thanks, Ava. Now let's go. Yes, let's go over to Michelle.
Hello, Michelle McCoy. I'm Briar Patch Parent Support Coordinator. So I usually work with a lot of parents, but I do family counseling with youth. I do think that social emotional skills parents need that too, because a lot of parents are not really in touch.
Right.
Yeah.
I
And so
noticed. We
that's
all
one of the-
do. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
So, I do, I think what was it John that said, a check-in when I work with parents, I think I really start with a check-in to see where we are, and then we work through it. But I think check-ins are really great.
Absolutely agree. Thanks, Michelle. And hey, I'm a huge Briar Patch fan. I started out at Briar Patch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was a 30-hour volunteer training program to be a volunteer crisis hotline counselor.
Yep.
And I treated that like a class. I took one less class at UW-Madison. I took that instead, and man, just built so many great people and friends from that group in Briar Patch.
I just did a crisis class with the volunteers about 3 weeks ago, and we have another one coming up in July. So But yeah,
Awesome.
it really, if you're gonna be in here, you really need to know and understand crisis management.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. And now we have, well, let's see. Should we go? Who can put, anyone want to put their video on? Or if you can't, let's go with Michelle McCoy. No, you just moved over there. Kira. I just got Michelle. You just switched on me. How about Kira?
Sure, I can go. I'm Kira Rico. Like Ava mentioned, I work with her and Brittany at Kennedy Heights Community Center. I'm the lead after school teacher for elementary. I've been here for about 6 months now, but I've been doing youth work with community center after school programs for almost 6 years now, between AmeriCorps and just other youth work at a different community center. Definitely has been a learning experience through all 6 of those years, but also wouldn't like trade it for anything. Yeah, like here at Kennedy Heights, we're always like trying to incorporate more things into SEL, just to kind of try to help the kids become decent human beings, like mostly. And I personally like to try to do more of the like group setting, team building things, just to try to get them to get along more and learn how to work together and just things like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't always go to plan, but it's
Yeah.
always good to try.
Yeah. Well, we're all
yeah.
here to learn, right?
Definitely. But yeah, it's been good. It's always looking to improve both like how I look at things and try to teach it, but also just like how to help the kids like improve like in
Absolutely.
their lives.
Kira, when you talk about group work, have you ever heard of this? Tribes, this book?
I don't think so.
Oops. Gene Gibbs, Tribes. It's really quite amazing. It says a new way of learning and being together. And it's kind of a basic, it's based on a basic idea that I'm a big fan of, that I think goes right to what you said about kids, you know, learning how to get along with each other and be in groups and interact, and building that sense of group identity, I think is really a great thing to do. So I've experienced doing that as a camp counselor, and I think it has incredible power for after school as well. And let's see, who didn't I get? I think I didn't get Brittany K.
Oh shoot. Hi, I'm sitting outside. I have a shirt on, I swear.
It's fine that you're sitting outside, and I'm glad you have a shirt on, and it looks beautiful out there. And
that's why I'm
you can do class out there. Yeah, why not?
Exactly. So I'm Brittany, and I am also with Ava and Kira at Kennedy Heights. I'm the middle school program coordinator, and I've been there for about 3 months. I have very, very little involvement in after school, but I coached soccer for 5 years, from 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds. So that's my involvement in youth work.
Okay.
And I just have a strong desire to be around, obviously, people who are younger and help them make sure that they are on the right track to a healthy lifestyle, so that they stay away from prison, because I got my degree in criminal justice and I see the justice system everywhere. And like I said, my desire is to help them realize that there are positive paths that you can take in life.
I love it. I'm a soccer coach as well, Brittany.
Yes.
And I'm not done yet. I'm going to go back and coach some more soccer.
That's awesome.
Soon.
You need to do it.
I love it. All right. And I think we have Taylor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor, and I'm a community youth development educator with UW Extension. And I've been in this role for less than a year. I recently graduated with my master's in public health from UW. And a lot of my research was how art spaces and arts programming in particular can help address adverse childhood experiences and build resiliency in youth. So I feel like building social emotional skills really go hand in hand with the arts. But a lot of the work that I do currently with Extension is I work a lot primarily with high school students and civic engagement opportunities throughout the county. And I would say that these kids who I work with are typically super engaged at school, have a million different extracurriculars. And so I think some of the things that I try to build in my programming is just opportunities for them to kind of zone out, where we're not going to be doing some, super intense work. We can be silly, we can play games, and then also kind of giving them the opportunity to take a step back. So if they are having a really hard week and they have a lot on their plate, building that environment where they can come to me to say like, hey, can I take a step back this week? Can I lighten my load? And kind of setting that environment that's okay. Because a lot of times I think we all move a mile, we're just like moving 100 miles per hour. And so especially in kids, being able to say like, hey, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to take a break.
I love that message, and it's so powerful and so important right now. There's an institute, I believe, I guess you'd call it, I believe it's Stanford University. It's called Challenge Success. And it's really quite amazing. I think they have done things like looked at suicide rates in communities, for example, and also responded to requests from like municipalities, neighborhoods that were concerned one way or another about the mental health of the kids. And Challenge Success ultimately has that same message, Taylor. It's like, let's recognize the stressors and the pressures that the kids in our community have, and let's make sure we're not piling on to that. And a lot of times parents don't understand how much that those questions about grades can get magnified within an individual and be, that child is putting more pressure on themselves than parents often realize. So often kids need opportunities to figure out how to de-stress and how to minimize stress and manage it better. Whether we're talking about fairly privileged kids that have a million great opportunities that kind of are accessible to them, or kids that don't have resources and opportunities and have different kinds of stressors, right? Great points. And then I believe we still have Courtney Howard there, right? And did we get everyone else? I think we did. Okay. Courtney, are you there? Okay, well, we'll see what happens. If we get Courtney back, we can get an introduction. Alrighty, so one thing I just want to do, people already mentioned a little bit, and thank you about your interests and kind of maybe what brought you here, where you're at. A lot of people have a lot of knowledge, probably in a lot of areas that I don't. I'm not here to really present myself as exactly an expert in social emotional skills and after school, but kind of as John was saying, the field, it has always at its foundation, I think, really been about relationship building. Youth work is about relationship building. And from there, you can put a lot of different lenses on that. And for a long time, and we continue to really have put a trauma-informed lens on that. And I think that can be really beneficial because it's not just a buzzword or a passing thing. It's something that is transforming the helping professions and even the teaching profession and social work in particular, where I see it a lot, because I think it's raising the bar of quality, and it's saying a low level of service quality, service delivery is not going to be good enough. And in fact, it could be even more harmful than doing nothing. And there have been studies I've come across that say low quality youth programs can be more damaging to kids and can create more risk factors for kids than if they just went home. And that's so disturbing to hear. But the trauma informed kind of movement has really raised that bar and I think made it clearer and easier for people to see, yeah, we have to, if we're going to do youth programs, they have to be done in a quality way. And then a little bit more insight about what does that really mean? And so the trauma informed movement, I think, has been a great lens to put onto the relationship focused approach to youth work. And then directly connected to that is social emotional skills. One thing we know about the effect of trauma and adversity and high chronic stress is that it can freeze or delay social emotional skill development. It can actually cut us off from the parts of our brains that are able to do that work. And so whether we're talking about kids that are struggling with their social emotional skills at their kind of age, at their developmental level, because of trauma or because of adversity, because of high chronic stress, or for any other kinds of reasons, or kids that are not struggling with those skills, we want to be able to bring experiences in our after school that are going to be beneficial for all of them. So whatever the reason is, and even if a child maybe is at developmental level, we still need modeling and practice, right? With these skills. And so the idea is that intentionally we can intentionally bring opportunities for modeling and practice. And I'm going to start out by showing everyone a video. You may have seen some version of this video, but we're going to watch it. It's about 4.5 minutes long. And then we're going to use that to talk be a little bit more specific about what we're talking about when we talk about social emotional skills. And it sounds like a lot of you have already seen like models of social emotional skills, the Castle model that are out there. And we can look at a couple related things that we'll look at today. But first, let's just check out this video and we'll see, we'll have a little conversation about it and see what we can sort of bring from that. And let me grab my new share, get the sound going. Here's that. And here we go.
Okay, scoot up. Okay, so here's the deal. There's a marshmallow. You can either wait, and I'll bring you back another one, so you can have two, or you can eat it now. So you can eat it now, or you can wait, and I'll bring you back two. Okay?
I'll do.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I have one marshmallow for each of you.
Okay.
One.
Don't eat it?
And here's the deal. You can either eat it now, or you can wait till I get back, and you can have two. Okay?
Okay.
So eat it now, or wait till I get back, and you can have two. And I'll be back in a little.
If we wait, you'll give us two?
Yep, if you wait, you'll get two. Or you can eat it now, whichever you want. Okay? I'll be back in a little bit.
We're gonna wait. I wonder what we're gonna do. Are you gonna eat it? If I want to eat one, or we're still not gonna get to. But if you wait until she gets back, she'll give you two. She still won't give you two because you ate it. Some of it. And I didn't eat a single bite of mine. So don't show her, okay?
I'm going to stop right there because I think we have enough examples here. But first of all, what did you notice? Let's look at what was the range of behaviors that you saw with the kids that were given the marshmallow challenge? What did you see kids doing?
I guess like getting as close as they possibly could to not eating the whole marshmallow. So like even just sniffing it or licking it or taking like a tiny little bite and then putting it back as if that was okay or following the rules.
Right. Yeah, we saw that for sure. Some teeny little nibbles. What else did you notice?
Their demeanor was, oh, I'm really impatient. Why isn't she coming back yet?
What was the first thing you said?
Their demeanor was
Oh,
really impatient.
the demeanor. You saw them looking like they were feeling really impatient.
Yes.
Yes, all of them. Anybody else? What did you observe?
One of the kids was trying to be like really encouraging with the sibling or whomever he was sitting with to be like, wait, like if you wait longer, you're gonna get two. But she obviously did not listen. But he was trying to be like supportive and encouraging of her.
Yeah, that's true. He was, and also he might have been trying to make it a little easier for himself. Like, she did that, but he's not going to, right? I'm not going to do that. That's what I'm not going to do. So we definitely saw struggle and strain on their faces and in their demeanor, right? Anybody else notice anything?
Well,
Yeah.
well, they all had different self-management areas, how they regulated themselves during that time. Nobody asked the question, when are you coming back or anything, but their emotions are a lot different. Some were growing bored, but but how they did their self-management was different in many of them. And then their awareness of another person eating it and their interactions.
Yeah.
Well, you notice that, but and that was with two people. But again, I'm not sure what the whole result was that they're trying to get at. But I mean, obviously, different kids, you got to take in a lot of things. That some of the kids might be super hungry, and that was it. But it was a neat little test that they did.
Yeah. So it's actually based on a series of studies, and it's represented in, one particular book that I know of that it represents the series of studies is called the Marshmallow Test. And in these tests, they found that some kids did not do very well in waiting for the second marshmallow, and some kids did well. And then they noticed in the video that the kids that did not do well were pretty much the ones we saw here. Were making some mistakes, or they were not able to engage any effective strategies. What we saw them really doing mostly was staring at the marshmallow. And that's the worst thing you can do, because then you're just putting that temptation like front of mind, right in front of your face. You can't stop thinking about, you can't think about anything but the marshmallow. And those kids don't have any skills to help them do anything different, right? It doesn't occur to them. And they're almost doomed to fail because, I mean, let's face it, if any of us had to stare at a marshmallow if we were hungry, stare at a marshmallow for just a few minutes, and we really, really, really wanted it, and we didn't know how long it was going to be till the second one showed up, we could give in too. But they found out in these studies that the kids that did well, they actually used a wide variety of really creative techniques. So one child that they interviewed afterwards just turned his chair around and would not look at the marshmallow, and he just made himself think of other things and refused to think about the marshmallow. And time went a lot faster, and he was successful. And then he got the two marshmallows. Another kid actually got out of the chair and went under the table and just sat under the table so they could not see the marshmallow, right? Similar strategy. One child said that they imagined that the marshmallow was actually soap and would taste really, really terrible. And then others would just like sing songs, dance around the room and stuff like that. Yet you've got this group of kids that would just stare at it until they couldn't bear it anymore, and their strain is showing on their face, and they finally eat the marshmallow. And then of course they feel terrible. They see someone that they failed and someone else comes in and gets 2 marshmallows, like that little girl and the bigger kid. And what they really found from that was super, super encouraging is that first of all, those kids that learned those skills, you know, they really wanted to know, where did these kids get these skills from? And they went back to like families, and they found that the kids were learning these because they were modeled these kinds of strategies on delaying gratification, were modeled and were talked about and emotionally processed like a lot of the time. And there were all kinds of opportunities for practice that these kids had. But if kids did not have the modeling and the opportunities for practice and the emotional name labels and processing, then they did not have those skills. But the big thing was they were able to take those kids that did not have those skills and explicitly teach them those skills. And then those kids were able to use them in situations like the marshmallow test, or in all the situations of life that are so much like the marshmallow test, right? We all have marshmallow tests all the time. This class could be a marshmallow test. I don't know, maybe. So just curious about your thoughts about that, because every day you are all seeing kids who are maybe at all different, very different levels in terms of this one really important social emotional skill, which is a key skill of self-regulation, which is about delaying gratification, or you could call it impulse control. It's a real foundational one. And every single individual person at some point learns how to, or fails to learn to, successfully manage their impulse control and delay gratification. And we need that so much in life in order to succeed, right? And you see kids at widely varying places. So I'm curious if anybody could share a little bit about what do you see with your kids and how they deal with and struggle and manage their delaying of gratification and impulse control.
I looked at it also though as goal setting, that if you say you want to be a doctor, you have to, that might be a long-term goal. But kids need to be able to put short-term goals like, hey, you got to get to school, you got to finish your math, do this, this. So it's also goal setting and instant gratification. I guess, you know, if I'm hungry and one would have been good enough for me, I don't see that as a problem, that wanting to have 2. But I also think many of the kids we're dealing with, that instant gratification, not having long-term goal, or not setting goals for themselves is really, it's so important that if you ask a kid that, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're going to be similar answers, but then how are you going to get there? And maybe that first goal is finishing your math assignment. And then the second goal is graduating from high school, whatever. But to me, having each child set goals, and it could be for today, let's set a goal. And instead of, you know, and looking at, like you said, the gratification of reaching each goal instead of saying, oh, I'm going to be a doctor to leave that. So,
right. Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, you know, I did some in an after school program that close to where I live. I met this young girl, we'll call her Austria, and Austria would come down from the day school with her teacher, just sort of kind of dropping her off in like a really tense, angry kind of mood, the teacher, and was kind of like, I'm done with her, you take her now, kind of a thing. And Austria did not look real happy herself, and they both looked super fried out. And this was how after school started. This after school day started a lot of days for Austria. And Austria then goes into a room because she has to do homework, but she doesn't have any homework. So then the youth worker in the room asks how old she is, and then gives her a worksheet and says, well, if you go and complete this worksheet, then you can go do the fun stuff in the room next door where everyone's running around. And in the room where people are doing their homework, there's kids running around in there. There's a lot of noise. There's people throwing balls and, running through the room and screaming and stuff like that. And then there's a bunch of kids having a lot of fun right outside. There's windows and doors open. And here's Austria trying to do this worksheet that doesn't even apply really to anything she knows. And it's not geared to her at all. And she's staring at it. And she doesn't see herself getting to the fun part of after school at all. So now this is a real example, and I hope it's not a common example where any of you all work, because there's so many things that are just not being done well here. But I think as we can, focus on a child and what skills do they or don't they have, and how are we going to help them get those skills, we can really look a lot to, are we creating an environment that is conducive to learning and succeeding with self-regulation and social emotional skills, right? Are we setting up an environment that has supports for things like focusing and planning and concentrating? And what would go into creating an atmosphere that feels like that for a child, that supports rather than threatens their ability to succeed in doing things like focusing or delaying gratification? And I'm curious what y'all thoughts are just on that right off the top of your head, because I bet a lot of you do things every day to try to eliminate the threats and increase the supports that are kind of like these external sources of that can help produce really successful experiences with delaying gratification, focusing, using social emotional skills better. What are your thoughts about that, or examples?
I feel like sometimes I hear youth workers talk about, they pull on their relationship with the kid. So it's a bit of, hey, let's do this together, and then we'll be able to do this next thing together. Kind of a do it for me.
Yes.
And hopefully an acknowledgement, because I'm also doing things
Here at NPR's
with you in mind. So it's like, we created this fun stuff, and we also know we have this other stuff we need to do, and we'll do it together.
Right. Anybody else, your thoughts? How are kids doing with their social emotional learning right now? I'm going to shift the question a little bit to that.
Well, in our case, it's empowerment when you learn social emotional curriculum. And I believe, the first thing is a child needs to want to come to that center, feel safe, feel that there's adults that they can trust, and then understand why we're doing this. Kids don't always, you can teach stuff, but they don't understand the why and what's going on. And to me, many of the kids today feel much safer coming to a community center than they do for a school. So, and a lot of times, like I said, with the check-in, we use this mood board where they can look into it if needed, and you have the resources. If somebody has some concerns about the check-in with the child and how they're feeling, then you can maybe move to a one-on-one situation for that child. But again, it comes down to having the resources to be able to do stuff. A lot of community centers are stressed because of either monetary or amount of people they have, or many times community centers' hours are dictated. But it's a tough business to be in because a lot of people don't see it as more than a babysitting service, which most community centers are.
Yeah, I guess most community centers are, until they apply for that grant where they talk about all the wonderful impacts that their programs have on the kids, right? Where they're now bound to try to do more than just have kids like not get hurt and have that be the goal, you know, and actually have as the goal some proactive, you know, building of skills, abilities, impactful experiences, right? And then when that happens, now it's, well, we're not just warehousing kids here. We're helping kids that might be behind in a variety of areas, whether it's academic or emotional and social skills, right? So I just have this screen here that from the Institute for Health and Human Potential that just has this nice list of what I consider sophisticated social emotional skills are represented with each of these abilities. And here's where I just think that you can almost you can take a category of social emotional skills, and we've seen them in the Castle model, for example, or there's a 4-H life skills wheel, and that has a lot of social emotional skills as well. And you can realize that actually that's a category, and I have to break that down into skills. So you can go ahead and do that, and then you can be like, actually, those are categories too. I have to break those down into skills. And you can almost continually break down social emotional skills into more sort of finely tuned or components to these skills, which are to me really abilities, right? So I have the ability, let's say in the top left one, I have the ability to not become defensive when criticized. That's a pretty sophisticated ability right there. And that means that I have to engage a whole lot of skills in order to do that ability. And I think that you could do that for any of these probably here, right? And realize, well, there's probably some of these that you're really good at, and there might be some that you're not very good at. And if you really went into it, if we took more time today, we could take this list and identify the ones we're good at and start to investigate, why am I good at that? What is it that has enabled me to become good at that? And when I've done this with groups of youth workers before, people often find that they had a parent who kind of just, this was like their mantra, right? And they did this really well, and they did all the time, and they talked about it being important. And so that means that you had it modeled and had support for trying it, and it was valued and it was recognized, right? That's usually the story. So all of these great sophisticated abilities start with more simple ones and are and probably were practiced fairly consistently during your whole childhood. Now I'm just presuming a lot of things in a generic example, but you could take some of these that you're not good at, and you could say, you know what? I try to see things from another perspective. I'm really bad at that. And maybe I had a parent that just never did this well, and I never had it modeled, and I never realized that I wanted to, figure that out. So, and this experience, this kind of activity of thinking back to what made me good or not good at each of these things, this can bring about a certain level of self-awareness, to kind of think about, how much effort have I put into this skill, and why is it that I'm good at this? And what are all of the little micro skills that are really wrapped up in this, being able to do this thing? Because then we can turn around and look at our kids, and we can, not only can we say, is the environment supporting or detracting from a child's ability to utilize these social emotional skills? But we can also say, are the demands that I'm putting on my kids, are they realistic? Given that some kids may not have had modeling or experience, or even understand some of the language involved in managing these skills in certain situations. And it might be true that I can stay calm under pressure under most situations where it's easy, where there's not really too much pressure and I'm able to stay calm and I'm in a familiar environment with people who love me. But then let's say I'm somewhere else in a different environment with people who don't love me, who, want something from me that I can't really give them. And I might have, and are getting angry. Then I'm going to have a hard time staying calm under pressure. So another really important point about development is, and developing skills like social emotional skills, is that we can first experience having the skill or doing the skill successfully in really low stakes, really safe, low stakes environment, like where other people aren't watching. I'm not having to perform for anybody. I'm told that it's okay if I don't do well because it takes a long time to figure it out, things like that we can do to lower those stakes, because we're more likely to have success when we feel calm and we feel safe. We're not on edge. We're not Austria in that room staring at the worksheet with kids flying around the room. And so I think that's important to understand too, that what we want to do is scaffold these skills and help kids first be able to learn them in very simple, very low stakes, very safe environment. Any comments, questions, thoughts you have as I say that and you look at these skills here?
I have an example of I have a mini story, I guess I'll say.
Cool.
There's one individual at Kennedy Heights who now goes to another community center, just because it would benefit him much better with the resources that they had that we don't yet have. And he came in one day and was just on a different level from any of the other individuals, students. And I know that he likes sports. So I'm like, hey, Kira, I'm going to take so-and-so out to play football because this is what it's going to benefit him at this time. He's not going to interfere with the safety of other staff members or other students in the center. And obviously not obviously, but on that walk away from the center, I said, if you just letting him know that I am an out, or what is it called? There's a word I can't think of. I'm someone he can go to if he ever feels that he's about to have an outburst, and then we can go for a walk. We can go throw the football. We can go shoot baskets for a minute. Whatever activity it is, because I know that physical action is healthy for himself individually, and just in general for the human body. Yeah. And so it's unfortunate that obviously he's not consistently at the center anymore, but just letting him know that he can find a different path to take instead of having an outburst where it's detrimental to his safety and other people's safety.
Yeah. So to me, we can interpret that like a child that is struggling like that and has these meltdowns or outbursts, and maybe it, for example, a kid might be violent and hit and hurt other kids, that kind of stuff. And this can be a pattern. And we can look at that child and what we can interpret through the lens of social emotional learning. We can say, this child needs an external co-regulator. This child's not able to regulate themselves in the situation for whatever reason. We don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out some more clues, but what I like is engaging in the conversation with a child about how this is a struggle for you, right? This is hard for you. And it is hard. Can be a hard thing to do, to not lose it when you feel mad or whatever it is, right? And then to say, what can I do to help this child be able to be successful, right? So how can I be an external co-regulator with this child? And together we're going to be investigating what, not so much the question, why is this hard? That's kind of like the question, why did you do that to a child? And they often say, I don't know. and instead really focus on, I wonder what would help you next time you're in that situation to do something different. And I think that kind of flips the script a little bit, because what we know that, first of all, what we know kids, often when kids are dysregulated, what they really need is connection. They want to feel connected to somebody. And I mean like a sustained, continuous connection. Yet, even kids that are craving that often don't know how to ask for it. And they might even feel uncomfortable once they're getting it, and they might leave, even though they really want that. And they're going to want you to try to provide that next time they, get close to you or create some kind of chaos. But I think it's important to really cultivate the core belief for us as youth workers, the core belief that some kids aren't getting the amount of attention and connection that they need, and they are desperately trying to get it. And that can be behind a lot of behavior that looks like and is dysregulation. And so what you just described, Brittany, was so brilliant, because this child was struggling, and this child really needed an external co-regulator and needed somebody to be continuously connected with for a while. And it sounds like you did all that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think that you did. So I'm going to have us jump over to, in our last half hour here, to look at, I was recently talking to, I met this friend, he's a teacher, and he was telling me about his school. And he was telling me about some things that he does in his school that help his kids learn self-regulation and social emotional learning. And he showed me a video that he said he showed it to his kids at the beginning of a year. And then it inspired the class to do a certain activity that was incredibly powerful, that really changed the mood of the room. In this case, it was from the end of lunch period till the rest of the day, that it completely changed his classroom. And this was a couple years ago, this was years ago, and he still uses it today. So we'll watch this video. It's something I think you're all probably pretty familiar with. And then we'll talk about real specifics. And I want to get back to John talking about check-ins. And then I have some other things to share about check-ins too. So let's just watch this video here.
Our kids off to school each day so their minds can be filled with knowledge, but clearing the mind, that's the practice one school district is preaching. It's taking time out of the school day for meditation. And by looking inward, these students are finding outward success. The story tonight from NBC's Cynthia McFadden.
At first glance, Visitation Valley School in San Francisco looks like an ordinary, chaotic middle school. But twice a day, something out of the ordinary happens that has changed everything. It is the sound of silence. 8 years ago, in the heart of one of the city's poorest and most violent neighborhoods, the school was spiraling out of control.
There'd be fights here 3 to 5 times a week. The kids see guns on a daily basis. They see all sorts of weaponry. They have that baggage with them.
Desperate, the district tried a pioneering program called Quiet Time.
Ignore the sounds you hear outside, upstairs, in the hallway.
The idea, teach students transcendental meditation and give them 2 15-minute periods a day to close their eyes and let go of the stresses in their lives. So did you buy into this at the beginning, or were you a little like, hold it a minute, meditation?
I thought it was a joke. I thought, this is hippie stuff that didn't work in the 70s, so how's it going to work now?
Make sure you switch, good.
But 4 years later, some startling results made the skeptical coach a true believer.
Good job.
A 79% decrease in suspensions, an increase in attendance to 98%, and a clear rise in academic performance. More than 1,500 students and 170 staffers have now been trained to meditate in 4 of the district's schools. including Burton High, once known as Fight School. This is Burton High today, where meditation has replaced mayhem.
There are people who are going to say, hold it a second. You're taking a precious half an hour out of the school day.
You know, I actually was in the same boat, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to steal time from English instruction or math instruction in order to do that.
Instead, he agreed to extend the school day. And now the results are as dramatic as in the middle school. A 75% reduction in suspensions and a move from the bottom of California's academic ladder to the upper middle rungs. School officials say that's because students now feel safe, relaxed, and ready to learn.
It makes you more conscious of your actions.
It brings you down to that calmness.
Before Tobias started meditating, he says he was an angry kid.
I always want to fight everybody for some reason.
You remember?
Yeah.
You see a change in him?
Yeah, tremendously compared to from the 6th grade to now.
You can't change the violence and the stress that happens outside these walls.
I cannot, but I can help our students find ways to deal with the violence, the trauma, and the stress of everyday life.
Tools they can use with their eyes closed. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News, San Francisco.
Okay. So probably everyone here is familiar with meditation, but I'm curious who has actually used it. Can anyone describe if you've used it? Can y'all hear me? Let me, I have to get your video.
I can comment. I've used it like just in my personal life. I'm not a master meditator by any means, but just by slowing down and like checking in with your body, because like we're going all day, and especially when you're in an environment with like lots of emotionally dysregulated kids, like sometimes you need to take a moment for yourself.
Right.
And I've definitely thought about introducing it to the kids. I think it would be sort of brushed off.
What do you mean by that?
Like I just don't know if the kids would show interest, basically. Like, I don't know if they're at a point where they would be open to that. I think maybe just even talking and teaching about it would be a good first step.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ava. So you've done it yourself, but you're a little hesitant about, not sure about actually trying it with kids and if they'd be into it. Yeah. Anybody else? Maybe others haven't tried doing meditation with their kids.
When I worked at the Lucier Center on the west side, we worked with the UW Center for mindfulness.
Right.
I can't remember their name.
Yeah.
And they came out during one summer and worked with our middle schoolers. And they would come once a week at the beginning of the camp day. And they would do like a different mindfulness practice. You know, they'd lead something that the kids hadn't done before. And then through the rest of the week, all the other sessions, people would, all the other days of camp, the staff would then either repeat that one or repeat a different one that the kids had done the previous week or so. And that was a really nice, and they definitely said they felt like kids came into the space after a while. It took a while. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we love this.
Right.
They definitely pulled on their relationships with the kids to kind of say, come on, you know that the rest of the day will be fun.
Right.
You know, meet me here with this one. Yeah, and I think the staff really appreciated that they didn't have to kind of read a book and try something. They had some helpful partners for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you're thinking of Center for Healthy Minds.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
it would be cool to get connected with them. Do they do, you said they do like collaborations
time-
with community centers or?
Yeah, at the time they
programs?
came out and their staff, you know, I think they were trying to figure out practice ideas for working with young people, especially young people of color, kids in, you know, living with limited economic resources. So it was a win for both, right? Because they were advancing their skills and their experiences, and we were getting good services.
Right. So yeah, I could, there's a lot of stories about school systems that, or a school that has hired a meditation, you know, facilitator who might come into every classroom at least once or twice a week. And each time get the kids meditating, get them trying a few different techniques. And, you know, we can look to experts to have those kinds of techniques and to feel as people who are going to be comfortable teaching kids, you know, a new technique each time and building on those techniques. But that's pretty sophisticated, and that is really great. But I can tell you that from my experience, there's nothing, there's not too much that an expert meditation facilitator can do that we can't probably pull off pretty well ourselves. As long as what is tricky is what Ava, you expressed, is maybe some hesitation with, are the kids gonna get into this? Are they gonna like it? And that's where sometimes we have to kind of take a leap of faith and jump in there. And often what I hear is that people are really pleasantly surprised that this is something different that kids immediately find really, really rewarding. And let me just try to give you a really nice, simple way of doing meditation with kids that my friend, the teacher, told me he did. So he showed them that video. So they all just watched it, and then they got to just talk a little bit about meditation. And he said, you all have learned, at that point, they had all learned about 3 or 4 at least different like slow breathing techniques. And while meditating, so that's like mindfulness meditation, is like focusing on something like your breathing. And I think that's a good thing to do, is to have kids just focus on your own breathing. And he had them do it for 5 minutes. And this was 3rd graders and 4th graders. So only 5 minutes, not 15. That's too much. And you can do whatever you want with your body as long as you're kind of like still. And you can close your eyes if you want. And I'm going to ring a bell, and then 5 minutes later, I'll ring the bell again. And what I want you to do is to just go into your mind and just focus, try to just think about your breathing. And then he said, after that, you can use any technique that you've learned. So then over time, he might have taught them a little 5-finger breathing technique. Inhale, exhale, inhale. You just draw on your hand while you inhale and exhale. And you can do that with kids. You can easily go find a couple other really simple breathing techniques like that. But meditating and slowing down your breathing, actually, and becoming consciously aware of your breathing, it engages I believe it's the parasympathetic nervous system that's responsible for calming yourself down. And what this teacher found, and a lot of us find, is that when kids don't have a lot of trouble upcycling, getting excited about things, but it's after they've been really excited about things and they're all upcycled. This is kind of that upregulating, downregulating, upcycling, downcycling. It's all about regulation. And what are the demands of my environment? If I'm out in the playground, the demands are I upcycle, I get excited, I get activated, I can run around and all that, and be loud, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, recess is over, we're off the playground, we're sitting in our chairs. All of a sudden I'm sitting in my chair and I have to do math problems. That's a huge swing down to downcycle, down to the point where I've got my body calm enough that I can focus and concentrate, right? And that is an example of, for a lot of kids, of unrealistic swing right there, unrealistic expectations. So what this teacher did was he found that that's when all the fighting happened and stuff, because kids were having trouble calming themselves down. Self-calming, it turns out, is one of the most challenging like aspects of social emotional learning that we have. So meditation can help kids learn how to calm themselves down and engage the parasympathetic nervous system and help them to focus. So he did that right when they came back. It became a ritual that's what they did every time they came back from the playground. And after school is kind of similar. When after school starts out, where have kids been? What have they been doing? Typically, they've been being really loud and noisy and having a ton of fun with their friends between the end of school and the beginning of after school, right? I don't know. I mean, it depends. It varies, but that's the case in a lot of situations is kids are actually in need of downcycling right off the bat, or they might actually be in need of more physical exertion, more time to be in that mode before they're asked to then calm down again. So I think it's really important to think about that sequencing. And I really want to encourage you all to watch some videos, read a book, whatever it takes. But I think right now you could turn around and you could lead a group of kids in very, very simple, focus on your breath for 5 minutes, meditation activity. And I would hope that you would start to see incredible results, because that experience can really be the beginning of kids becoming aware of, it's kind of their metacognition, becoming aware of how they're thinking and how they're doing and how their body feels. And that checking in with yourself becomes a really important coping mechanism for dealing with stress. So that's one super practical thing I wanted to give you. And thanks for the links. I put something that's more about social emotional learning skills and meditation, a really great article that focuses on middle schoolers. And I'm going to show you another thing, but right now, before we're starting to wrap up here, I wanted to ask if John, you mentioned a morning routine or immediate when programs start routine where you do a check-in. And can you tell me like exactly what is that? How does that work? What are the instructions the kids have, and what do you say? And what are the first few things that you do? John, are you there? No? Okay. Well, I actually have a really cool website I want to show you, a web page here. So this is from the Responsive Classroom, and I really recommend this resource, responsiveclassroom.org. And here they talk about morning routines. And in our case, for after school, it might just be, after school routine, the routine that starts when kids walk in to our room or we get them. And I think those first few minutes are really critical for setting the tone for the day, as it says here on this webpage. The routines you put in place for arrival time help children reconnect and to the classroom and their place in it as learners and as classmates. So I imagine a check-in that John does. I imagine an ideal kind of check-in situation would be that every day when the kids come in, they have like 2 or 3 things that they know to do that are automatic, that are probably posted somewhere as a reminder. And they're simple things, but they get the child ready to be engaged in whatever is going to happen next. They get ready. And ideally, we would sit like in a circle, maybe on the floor with pillows or something like that. But I'd love it if they didn't have to sit in desks some more. Freedom of movement becomes really, really important when we can give kids a little bit of freedom of movement and let them get their bodies comfortable and move their bodies around. But sitting in a circle and taking turns, just doing a check-in, just where the instructions are. Maybe, for example, someone could just say what kind of day they're having, or they could share a high and a low. Or even low, less disclosure, less personal kind of risk. And I would also allow kids to pass. And I think what would be really cool is if you had like a bunch of interest cards of some kind. Like I've got these cards, each card is about a different bug. And so every child in the group could take one card, and it could be something that they could then share something they like about that bug, or something that they just read from the card about it that they like. And they could also take a red card that you have maybe, and the red card just means pass. I feel like passing today. and that's fine, right? They just show the red card and they get the pass. And then they're just listening to other kids talking about how they're doing. And what does that accomplish, do you think, for a group of kids at the beginning of a after school session? What does that accomplish that's important? Any ideas?
Well, a lot of times the check-in is you're gathering information on what type of mood they're in, how things are going. You can develop some type of a rapport, figuring out if you need to do anything.
So it gives you information about where they're at for sure.
Exactly. And, you know, we have a giant poster, what type of mood they're in, and they can point to a number or let me know. And then if they want to talk, then they let us know about that also. And we do have conference areas, but yeah, it's giving you a reason why too. So when you come in here and you're wondering why a child is feeling that way and acting that way, it gives you right away, you know, if they're coming in and sharing with why they're in that, you're able to determine, you know, what can we do to assist the child at that point.
Thanks, John. So we can learn a lot about that child and where they're at. And now, what are maybe what's one or two things that you think that anybody here can think of that is a benefit for the child to experience a check-in like that? How can it directly benefit the child besides how the child can reveal to us and give us helpful information about where they're at? But how can it benefit the child? What can it accomplish? What does it do? Thinking about a child and maybe their anxieties or fears, their emotional state, their feeling of safety and connection, where that's at. How does it this experience of a morning of a check-in connect to any of those things?
It lets them know that when they walk in the door that they're in a safe space and around like trusted adults that care for them and their well-being.
Hopefully it lets them know that. How do you think it could let them know that? What is it about that lets them know that?
I think it's a big part of that is just giving them choices. You know, and one of those choices is you don't have to participate. And I think kind of setting that groundwork where, you know, they know that whatever reaction they have or however they want to participate, that's okay. And hopefully that will translate into other situations as well, that no matter what they're feeling, it's okay.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that if kids come into a room and the adult is calm and says, all right, we're going to do our normal thing. We're all getting into a circle. We're all going to kind of share where we're at and hear a little bit from each other, unless anyone wants to pass. And that is a calming, reassuring, guided message that gives kids cues about what we're going to do, what is okay, and what we're not going to do and what's not okay. And kids need cues for what is the expected behavior. And they know that the usual thing's going to happen and here's how it's going to go. And I'm going to be able to pass if I want. All of those are reassuring. All of those are signposts of safety for a child. And that can help that child be calm, be more willing to be themselves, to be vulnerable, and maybe even to share something. And so, yeah, I think it can accomplish a whole lot of those things around feeling connected to others, really establishing that I'm a member of this group now and we are one entity. This group is a thing. We're all here. We're all kind of like getting in tune with each other or attuned. And that's important because I think there's a lot of times where people unfortunately start out after school sessions or classes with kids and they never kind of bring the group together in a way that has them sort of understand that we're identifying ourselves as a group. We're all members of this group. That becomes really important, I think, especially if we start thinking about our groups as, if not tribes, like the book Tribes, that the reason we're really here is to practice getting along with others. And so everything that we do is going to be about practicing that and trying to get better at that. And so we're all learning. We all have things to learn with it. We all have different struggles, and we're all going to help each other to learn those. And I think that's a great way of framing, why are we here together as a group? What is the real purpose of after school for me as a kid, right? And I think that can be a really powerful message to send. I've got this morning meeting. This also comes from that responsive classroom. It was a link from the previous page. And it talks about greeting and sharing and having a group activity and having a morning message of some kind. The morning message can be a little inspirational quote or something like that. And that could be a thing that instead of a card, a child could have the option of sharing what they think about the message, the inspirational quote that you brought, for example. So there's a lot of advice about and some steps and things to consider that are very practical here about having, what does that first few minutes look like when you bring kids together? Because there you're setting a stage where you can set a stage around safety and connection, and that can change the whole trajectory of the rest of your time together. With that, we have a few minutes left, and I think Susan may want to say some things. And I also just want to see if anybody wants to share any last thoughts or ideas or comments. Did you all feel like you got something helpful today? Are you all still there? Ava thought there was something helpful today. Thanks, Ava. Angie's there. I'm not sure anyone has any more thoughts to share, Susan, so it's all yours.
All right. I did want to say, I love the thinking about how if you run activities within, like, let's say you do clubs within after school or in summertime, and how do you incorporate these like opening, morning meetings into those activities? Because, especially if your camp is of a good size, you do want to help kids form a sense of belonging in each of the things they're doing, because they might be interacting with different young people, and you might be a different person to them. Like maybe they spend more time with John and then they flip over to Ava. So how do you incorporate these concepts of taking the time to center into the space and then create these rituals, and how much, and knowing that it is truly contributing to teaching those skills that are related to the social emotional learning. Sometimes I know Quinn was saying that when he showed the page with all the different skills that we have around engaging with each other and our social emotional selves, that we often learn those from parents is where it first comes. And I know many of us in many ways are surrogate parents for folks. I would never take on that role, but young people are looking to us. And we certainly know adults in our lives who have said, the community center I spent my time in, an X, Y, or Z person is someone I learned significantly from and is helped shape who I am today. So being ready to be that person. This is a nice new one. What's this one, Quinn?
I said I would share it, so I'm popping it on here to let you know. This is different than the castle model, and for some people it is a smaller bridge to something practical, right? And it's a shorter bridge. And so this is the 4-H life skills model, and it's a really beautiful thing, because you can see there in the 4 parts of the clover in the middle, we have 4 categories: heart, hand, head, and health. And then under each one of those are 2 others. So under heart, there's relating and caring. And then under each of those, like under caring, we have concern for others, empathy, sharing, and nurturing relationships. You could imagine how you could decide caring is what I really want to teach my kids the most, what I feel like they need the most. This is going to work really well with my group identity kind of model, this tribes kind of idea, the pro-social learning purpose for after school that I'm suggesting can be a great frame for kids. And then I'm gonna make sure that a lot of our material and themes and activities are going to really be about these topics and give kids practice, using them.
Great. So I did just pop in the chat. The first is the workshop feedback form. That's a Google form, quick and easy to take. So if you can pop in there and give us a little feedback. The second link that I just posted is from our funder, Every Hour Counts. I mentioned this at the beginning. They did this last year or 2 years ago with a grant we had, and now they're just doing it again. And Madison is one of 5 or 6 cities that are trying to kind of, boost up social emotional learning in the out of school time field. And they're just trying to get a sense of who we as staff in programs, what do we know? What do we believe about it? Our willingness to participate, those kinds of things. So if you can click on that survey too, that would be tremendous. I will send that survey link again to everyone in our learning community. So if you don't have a chance to do it now, you'll see it again. But you'll hear from me a couple times because we want to get it done over the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much, Quinn. Thank you all for carving out this hour and a half too.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks a lot, Susan. This was great. And I'd love to do more of this. If anyone has any thoughts about where you'd love to see like a part 2 version of this kind of presentation, this topic, I'd love to hear where you'd like to see that go. And I will stay on for a minute here in case anyone wants to share any ideas with me. Otherwise, you're free to go. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
So hard when we don't have video.
Sorry.
I think
Sorry, Quinn.
Yes.
I'm in my bathing suit. That's why I'm not trying to keep.
Oh, that's fine, Brittany. That's fine.
But I was listening intently the whole time, I promise.
Thank you.
I had a question. I wrote it down. So I guess from experience, like I said, I have not done much after school work, but I volunteered at an elementary school that was super, super diverse, racially and socially, just like all over the place individuals. And so my mom used to be a kindergarten teacher too, so that's where I mainly got my interest in helping the munchkins.
Yeah.
But you mentioned I guess it was kind of a list, but at least I wrote it like a list, where you're talking about the model, talked about emotionally process and then practice, or effective strategies and kids and how they don't have skills to handle certain things. I think it was around the marshmallow video.
Yeah. It was a slide you're talking about, right?
Possibly.
Was it the skills that I had here? Right here.
I think it was. Yes. I guess my question and experience currently is I continue to stay mellow. I mean, I don't fluster my emotions with the kids or staff members, no matter what the situation is. Like I had a girl call me an MFer yesterday 3 times, and I just looked at her.
Yeah.
And said, okay.
Good for you.
Because, of course, I mean, I I know only so much that they tell me or their peers tell me that is going on outside of
Right.
after school or outside of whenever I see them, whether it's when I'm walking to my car or whatever it is. But I guess how much should we allow them to act in that manner before we?
Oh, well, okay. I think, yeah. So staying calm certainly doesn't mean not having consequences and not letting that child know that that's not appropriate. And I think that a really great way to frame expectations is around safety, you know, your own and other people's safety. We can frame almost everything around rules and expectations around safety one way or another. And because then we're still communicating the message to the child that I am about safety and I'm about your safety and everyone's safety. That's what's most important to me. And when you threaten somebody, when you say something negative about somebody, that's not safe. That creates an unsafe environment. It makes people anxious and tense. And we need to find a different way that you can express when you're angry. Because the other thing is, it's okay to be angry. That can be a really powerful first message that ideally you might get from a parent when you're 2 or 1. But kids might not be getting that, and they need to understand it's okay to be angry. You're not going to lose my my positive opinion about you by being angry at me about something. I'm not going to, think badly of you, but you have to express it in a way that's not just about demeaning somebody or making somebody feel bad about themselves.
Right.
Does that help?
Yes. I know after one of her peers was sitting there with her, and they like to use foul words often. And it's obviously easier to get across to individuals when it's a smaller group, whether it's 1 or 2 of them. And so yesterday it was just those 2, and they like to use the excuse, well, if I say "fuh," I didn't say the full F word.
Right.
We all know what they're saying.
Those are fun games.
Yes. And so one thing I just mentioned to them yesterday I said it's a difference between cussing out loud or cussing at someone.
Yeah.
Because like if I stub my toe and I scream the S word, I'm not screaming at the chair that I stubbed my toe on. I'm just screaming because that's a reaction. And I talk to them a lot about responses versus reacting.
I think it's important. Yeah, I love that. I think you could talk about feelings, and respecting and protecting other people's feelings too.
Right.
There's a book that I think would be really helpful. There's 2 of them actually. There's this book called The Whole Brain Child, which is a really incredible.
Can't see it. Can you hold it up a little higher, like in front of your face? Oh no, now it's gone. Oh, there you go.
The Whole Brain Child.
I've heard of that too recently.
I think I hear you, Brittany, talking a little bit about discipline, and the follow-up book to that is this called No Drama Discipline. And these are amazing books. They're so helpful.
No drama discipline, you said?
Yeah, No Drama Discipline. I have to go here. You guys, I have to jump in on another thing.
Okay. Thanks, Quinn.
But this was great.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye, guys.
Take care, Susan.
Okay.